Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you here today. The start to our weekend Cabral HouseCalls. Glad you could join me for 6 questions today from our community. And yes, I'll be back with 6 more tomorrow. One of my favorite group of shows to do for the week. Every single day, you know the Cabral concept is bringing you one health-based topic, whether it be wellness-based, body transformation, it might be exercise, it might be detox, could be mindset. What I try to do is look at the totality of what helps people become healthy and also stay that way. Because for many people, they may have found health or the perfect weight for them or whatever it might be at some point in their life, but they weren't able to hold it. So one of the things that we like to do too is talk about how do you get results, not just the short-term results, but the long-term results as well. Then how do you maintain that for life? And how do you do it in a way that's realistic and that's easy for you to actually make it enjoyable? So hopefully I can share a little bit of that on today's show as well. All of the questions today will be at stephencabral.com/2220 if you'd like to read along. All right, I'm opening up the document right now. We'll call it the big document, the Ask Cabral document. And we are now picking up on our next 6 questions. I've got it open. Let's dive in. First question is from Anonymous. It says, if you or a family member were diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus and put on basically a PPI, an acid blocker, at a very high dose to stop stomach bleeds, but has since caused incredible iron deficiency where you have to have it intravenously supplemented, what would you do? All right. Well, that's a great question. I'm always happy to help with all these questions. Just keep in mind that I'm not allowed to, nor able to, nor would I provide medical advice, a medical diagnosis, or a medical treatment plan. I'm here to provide you with natural health-based solutions. So we look at the underlying root causes, which we're going to talk about right now. So what I would do is I would say, okay, you are currently doing iron-based IV intravenous-based infusions. And you have to keep in mind the problem with that is that they're highly oxidative. Iron is highly corrosive. Now you need it in your system, but the more iron you put in, the more inflammation for sure there is. There's just no doubt about that. So we find always equilibrium, right? That's what it's always about. It's by creating dynamic equilibrium in the body. That's what always the natural hygienists, the traditional naturopaths always used to say, right? The body's in flux. It's always trying to achieve equilibrium. They called it dynamic equilibrium. The first name for Equilife, the first name for the company was actually Equilibrium, as many of you know, a few years back. So, okay. The issue is that you're diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus or Barrett's esophageal, as it's sometimes called, but you have to understand that there's a root cause for that too. So what was the root cause? Okay, you have acid reflux. It's starting to, now you have silent reflux, so you don't feel the acid reflux because you're on a proton pump inhibitor or whatever it might be, an acid blocker of some type, but you know the acid's still coming up or enzymes are still coming up. The lower esophageal sphincter is not working. So please check out my podcast on LES, lower esophageal sphincter. It's most likely not working in a lot of people with Barrett's esophageal. So what we need to do is actually get to the root cause. So anybody with this issue, I recommend running the gut bundle. That's at stephencabral.com/labs. It's the food sensitivity test. It's the stool test for bacteria and parasites, which also looks at H.pyloria, at least for now, before they outlaw us looking at that. And then it also is the Candida metabolic vitamins test to look for yeast. That's what I would do. If you can only run one of those labs, you'll run the bacteria and parasite stool test. So that's where I would start. If you're able to run the big 5 plus the stool test, well, that's the very best. But you need to get to the root cause because without it, then you have no other option but what you're currently doing, right? So unless you get to the root cause of why there's stomach-based issues, acid-based issues, that's what we need to do. Right. And again, you can't blame it on genetics. That doesn't count. All right. We can't play that card. All right. Sarah's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Happy New Year to you and your family. I'm incredibly grateful to have found you in your wealth of information that you provide for improved health of our world. Thank you, Sarah. As an ICU nurse of 10 years, I'm so incredibly grateful to be in your IHP course and learning other more pure and helpful ways to care for people by keeping them out of the hospital and hopefully heading off chronic illness and disease. My question is, what are your thoughts about sea moss as a dietary supplement? As long as it is, of course, very cleanly and purely grown and harvested. It's said to have a myriad of benefits, including vitamins and minerals, as well as appetite suppression and GI regulation. But I've been wondering your thoughts on it for a while. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Sarah, for writing in. I don't know that I've spoken on sea moss before, so thank you for providing that opportunity to do so. So sea moss is actually very nutritious. It's loaded with vitamins and minerals. I don't know if I did a previous show on it before. I felt like I've done a pretty big breakdown on all the different vitamins and minerals. It was actually talked about in Weston Price's book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Is that the name of the book? It's been a little while since I've chatted about his work with the Weston Price Foundation. But one of the peoples that he spoke about, and I believe they're from Scotland, don't quote me on that either, they actually used to cook with sea moss. And so they would infuse a lot of those nutrients right in with it. And they would take the sea moss from actually the tops of the homes, because the homes had basically moss growing on them, and they would put it there because it was a great insulator as well, living by the sea. So what can I say for all of this? Well, I think it is great, 100%. I would always be careful, like you just said, of purely grown and harvested, because it could also contain heavy metals and mold and other issues. So we need to look at that part of it. But again, you can absolutely find pure, clean sea moss, so I'm not discounting that too. And then the whole thing about supplements is use it if you need it. Use it if you think you'd give it a boost. Maybe you're going to use it for 6 weeks, but maybe not for 6 years. So I have no problem with people trying other nutritional supplements, meaning like other things that they think might give them a boost. Maybe like, okay, this month I'm going to try CoQ10, like in ubiquinol form. Okay, great. Give it a shot. This month I'm going to try sea moss. This month I'm going to try adding, what's another interesting one? It might be like, okay, I'm going to try adding mushroom support. Okay. So I have no problem with any of these things because I do it myself. I do the same thing myself. So I'd be remiss to say, hey, if it comes from a clean company, give it a shot. Why not? I don't have an issue with really good nutritional supplements, because really good nutritional supplements are basically extracts, right? They're taking these foods and these nutrients and they're giving them at a little bit more of a concentrated dose. And living in the toxic world and toxic soup that we do, that's not necessarily a bad idea. So Sarah, give it a shot. Let us know how it went. All right, Angie is up next. I recently ran the mold lab with Great Plains, the mycotox report with my naturopathic doctor, and it showed elevated levels of aspergillus, ochratoxin A, at a level of 15.87. I had a consultation with her, and she didn't think my levels were high enough to do a mold protocol. Backstory, I've struggled with bloating, constipation, and a rash on the back of my head for years. That started after living with my mother-in-law's house, who did a mold. I've eradicated parasites in H.pyloria, but I still don't feel well. If I stay on a strict Candida diet, I feel better, but I've had vinaigrette the other day and the rash on my head intensified. I don't want to just manage the symptoms, but get to the root cause of the problem. I say all this because I'd like to do your mold protocol to get the fungus back in control. But with my levels, do you suggest I do that? I'm currently doing the SIBO finisher. Okay. So, well, Angie, I agree with both of you. So obviously we run the mycotox test all the time, and that's at stephencabral.com/labs. I just did a case study on it this week. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. I didn't even know your question obviously would be coming because I just opened up the document today, but I would love you to go back. I think it's 2218, right? Yeah, 2218 on mold toxicity. So it's interesting because it's the mycotox test. So definitely check that out. Obviously we run it. We offer consultation with it. And then if there's anything, we offer a program. And typically the program for most people is going to be just what you're talking about. It's going to have to be the SIBO protocol, the SIBO finisher, and then the mold protocol at the same time. And the nice thing is, since you did the SIBO protocol or you did maybe something like it, you eradicated some of that mold already, because the same nutrients that are in the SIBO protocol are used in the mold protocol, but the mold protocol has additional items as well. So it does help with mold because mold is a fungus. I also agree with your naturopathic doctor as well. because a 15.87 is absolutely elevated. It's more than double the level it should be. The level, I think, on a mycotox right now for Aspergillus ochratoxin A, without me actually looking at it, because ochratoxin A is the type of mycotoxin, is around a 7 or less, and you're a 15.87. So ideally, you're like between a 0 and a 5 at most, and you're a 15.87. So it probably shows more past exposure than it does current exposure, unless you're just being exposed to just a little bit of it every once in a while, or it would typically be higher. So I would do CBO protocol, intestinal cleanse, CBO finisher like you're doing right now, and I would do the mold protocol because there's not a whole lot of downside to doing the mold protocol, so I don't see why you wouldn't do it. That's kind of my philosophy. But again, I'm not providing medical advice. All right, thanks for the question. Michael's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I had a question regarding HCL. I keep hearing not to take HCL when you have an H.pyloria infection, but if someone has H.pyloria and SIBO, essentially, what do you do? Okay. It's a great question. Happy to help. So HCl is hydrochloride, helps make hydrochloric acid. So you're not putting acid in your stomach, but you're basically creating you're giving your body the nutrients that it needs to make that, which is hydrogen and chloride, right? HCl, hydrogen chloride. So yeah, and so what Michael is basically saying is that if you put HCl in, you're going to feed the H. pylori. That's true. And since H. pylori can lead to ulcers, and then you're taking HCl, well, that's not very good either. But at the same time, if you have SIBO, you want to make sure you have enough stomach acid, because if you don't, then you're not going to create enough acid in the stomach, which then will not allow for enough bile production, which will then probably exacerbate SIBO because everything will hang around in the gut for too long. And to be honest, the bowel peristaltic movement, which means moving the waste and the food through, is going to be slower, so there's more time to ferment and create more bacteria and yeast, because the yeast and bacteria has more time to ferment on anything fermentable. So it's a catch-22, right? Well, what we do is this. We fix the SIBO, we fix the yeast, and before that, we actually begin with H. pylori. So you're not working with our team, and that's totally fine, but this is what we do every single day, literally tens of thousands of people. So I have a podcast on essentially how to fix the gut. We go parasites first, H. pylori, then yeast and bacterial overgrowth, and that's exactly what we do. So again, I can't provide any medical advice. So what we do is we just start with the CBO protocol, and we're working on the H. pylori bacteria at the same time at an underlying root cause level. And then we're starting with just things like ginger and digestive enzymes instead of using HCl. And that helps with the digestion of the proteins. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful, Michael. Lots of free podcasts at stephencabral.com/podcasts. Just click, you can scroll through the images at the top and just click on the digestive ones if you'd like, and that will help you with all the digestive issues. I also have a course if you want to dive deep on how to fix your digestion at stephencabral.com/courses. Yasmin is up next. I'm a 57-year-old female and have recently been experiencing lower back pain and decided to get some tests done. I was diagnosed with osteopenia, was to prescribe 50,000 IUs of vitamin D, some calcium, zinc, and magnesium supplements. My question is there any treatment that I can follow that will reverse osteopenia? And any advice you can give me? My grandmother had osteoporosis, and my mother was borderline. Thank you so much. Have been listening to your podcast, which I recently came across, Jasmine. Okay, so this is why you should not take nutritional supplements from your doctor. And again, I'm not going against your doctor. Please do as your doctor says. That's what you legally have to do. But you can also become an informed patient, which I think is really, really important, because you don't give 50,000 IUs of vitamin D. That's what gives vitamin D a bad name. People say, oh, vitamin D causes hypercalcemia of the arteries and can harden the arteries. Okay, yeah, that's true. At 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000 IUs, which is what conventional medicine does. That does not happen in a normal dose of 2,000 or 4,000 IUs for an adult. So again, this is why conventional medicine should not be using vitamins, because they haven't studied this. They should be using pharmaceuticals because that's what they study. And I shouldn't be using pharmaceuticals because that's not what I studied. I should be using the de-stress protocol: diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically proven supplements, and a success mindset. That's how we heal. So yes, you're able to stop slow, and reverse bone loss. That's clinically proven as well. You do that through weight training 2 to 3 days a week. Okay, it doesn't have to be super strong, but yeah, weight training. You can do it through walking won't do it, but walking up hills will, or sprints will help as well. And there's a great product called Daily Bone Support at stephencabral.com/shop. You don't need to use it, but you should at least check out the ingredients, which contains actual forms of calcium, magnesium that don't hang around your arteries, but it will actually make the way to your bones. That's really, really important. Yeah, and then I would use the daily nutritional support, a little extra liquid vitamin D, and you'll be off to the races. So that's what I would do. All right. Shane is up next and last. Hi, Shane. Yeah. Hi, Shane. It says, hi, Dr. Cabral. I've experienced the last 3 years a discomfort, slight pain on the right side of my head, neck, and shoulders. Mostly feel it behind my right ear and the top of my head, especially when I wake up, along with my right hand feeling cold and stiff when I wake up. I also have a 4-inch hook-shaped rash on the right side of my neck, behind my ear, after being diagnosed with a fatty liver and gallstones. I've done multiple liver and gallbladder flushes and got out thousands of stones that improved my symptoms and health immensely! Exclamation point. I've also done the Big 5 labs, Candida overgrowth, SIBO, but interestingly, I did not have any food sensitivities, which was curious. Can you have leaky gut and not have food sensitivities? I also ordered the stool test recently, so I'll be waiting to see if there's any other imbalances. Also starting the SIBO protocol in the next month, so I was just curious, could this be my vagus nerve being overactive due to the imbalance of my body, causing the right side of my head, neck, and shoulders to have discomfort and pain? I work out 6 times a week, eat a balanced plant-based diet, take my supplements, go to a chiropractor, and acupuncturist care. So just curious what else to do. Thank you for all you do, Shane. Thank you, Shane, for writing in. Happy to help here. Okay, so, again, what we're looking at is we're saying, okay, everything is happening on the right side. And if you look at natural health and you're into natural health, things that happen on the right side, oftentimes, if it's essentially liver and above, which your neck and shoulders and all that actually are, can be liver related, right? So it can be liver, gallbladder related. You already went there. Maybe maybe you've read about this, and you may have had backed up gallbladder, which is basically just called liver congestion, okay? So that can be part of it. Can you have, I haven't seen your food test. If you have all lows in terms of food sensitivities, well, that could just mean that, again, your IgG part of your immune system is not working as well as it should be. Again, no medical diagnosis, but that's certainly an issue that we see, or you might not. Again, just because you have leaky gut doesn't mean that you have food sensitivities if your immune system is not looking at them as foreign particles and your body's removing them. But it doesn't also mean that you're not creating massive amounts of inflammation with all that leaky gut, right? Because we don't tell our bodies how to react, right? So, my genetics, I would end up with, because I had before, type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, adrenal issues, etc. For you, you may end up with more liver congestion, skin issues, skin rashes, etc. Again, so our genetics matter only when we allow for the expression of them, right? So I no longer have leaky gut, so I don't have that expression. And hopefully we obviously do the same for you. So you're on the right path. Again, I can't offer any medical advice, medical treatments. So really, what are we talking about? One, your exercise and the way you're sleeping could be causing some type of impingement, cervical impingement at your neck, right? So make sure your pillow is you're not too propped up. Okay, that's important for your pillow so that you don't get I guess a really layman's term would be to say a crick in your neck, right? Make sure there's no impingement in your neck when you're sleeping. Make sure you have a nice neutral spine. So that's important. Make sure that there's have your chiropractor look at the atlas and have them look at the cervical vertebrae to make sure everything is good, because that can obviously hurt circulation and blood flow, etc. So then we want to look at overall thyroid function. So I think it said you ran the Big 5, which you did. So you just kind of want to look at overall thyroid. And then everything is kind of going back to the gut and doing functional medicine detoxes for the liver. That's where I would start. 100%. That is exactly where I'd start. You're definitely on the right path. I'm probably not going to be that much longer before you are good to go. So thank you so much, everyone, for writing in today. Appreciate these questions. They were excellent. I'm going to be back tomorrow answering 6 more from our community. Take care.